Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to A Doctor's View, a show where we analyze some of the best scenes of your favorite movie and medically dissect them in a fun and entertaining way with the best brain in the healthcare industry right here in London. And yes, I mean your favorite movie, as this episode was recommended by a subscriber, Maria da Silva. And you can also recommend this week's episode by leaving a comment in the comment section below. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Alexis as we medically review Spiderman Far From Home. Intro. Hello, Dr. Alexis. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Dr. Alexis, and I'm a doctor working in care of the elderly or geriatrics, and I work in South London.
Wow, it's nice to have you on our show today.
Yeah, it's great to be on the show today. I'm very excited.
Wow, that's lovely.
Very happy.
Dr. Alexis, I believe you've actually watched Spider-Man, right? I know
I
you're into
have.
art, right?
Yeah, very much so. I love ever since I was growing up, I loved comic books.
Oh, okay.
I love cartoons. I love drawing.
Wow.
And I also love movies as well.
Oh, okay. I guess that's perfect for you then. So without further much ado, let's check the first clip.
Yeah.
You remember the scene in the movie?
Yeah. I
Yeah, everything seemed to be really fake.
do. Yeah.
Ouch!
Damn.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Did you see what happened to his spine?
That looked so painful.
Do you believe you can even
just-
stand back up after that?
Well, normal people don't.
Wow. So, Dr. Alexis,
No.
what did you see?
So, what I saw there was basically what we would term as a spinal cord injury.
Okay.
I think that when he fell and he had that impact on that beam,
Yeah.
he definitely looked like he broke something. I mean, for normal people,
Yeah.
it'd be shattered by now. So basically, what that means is it's damage to part of the spinal cord and the nerves around it.
Can you give me what causes that apart from such a huge fall?
I mean, other things that can cause this include road traffic accidents,
Okay.
falls. It can even include acts of violence as well.
So, what would somebody exhibit? What are the signs and symptoms of such a fall?
If somebody like this came to hospital, when we do their examination, we look for sort of it's very simple things first. The areas of pain.
Okay.
Looking out for signs of bleeding. The other thing is looking at their actual sensory or motor loss.
Okay.
The other signs, the signs that I guess are shown are things like leg and arm weakness,
Okay.
change in sensation, so they're not able to feel things or touch things as they would have done. It can even affect your the way you even feel pain, and sometimes it can change the way you perceive temperature, all sorts of things. So when we examine patients, that's what we look for.
So, if somebody's in such a critical situation, who do the person go to, and how is the person treated?
So it really depends on what injuries we find and
Okay.
what motor and sensory function is lost.
Okay.
When it comes to the spine, you want to go. You're probably want to be in the hands of the neurosurgeons as well, and they work together probably with the orthopedic surgeons. So the neurosurgeons are surgeons who are mainly involved with your neurology. So from your brain, from your skull, right down to your spine. That's what their speciality is in.
Okay, so Dr. Alexis, what do I do as a bystander if I witness somebody have such an injury? Should I go try and move the person as to help the person, or what do I do?
If somebody like that, if you see somebody say on the ground or even in the car, the first thing you could do is you could check for signs of life. You should not move the person.
Okay.
Check for signs of life if you can. So feeling their pulse, seeing if they're responding to your voice. Make sure you call 999 or emergency services as quickly as possible, because they're going to need very urgent care and medical attention. So that's what I would advise. Just don't try when you don't know what sort of injuries they have going on. Then sometimes you can even make it worse if you move them.
Exactly. I think that's something we need to take home, and I think you just summarized it as much as you could. Moving on, let's have a look at the next clip.
Okay.
Yeah, I think at this stage everything looks.
I know this is a bad scene.
Yeah. I think I was really moved at this point in the movie because I couldn't tell what was real and what was not real again. Oh, wow. 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 Wow.
It's just
wow.
It's just
I mean, I know people who've died just from being hit by a bicycle, but this is a fast moving train, like a high speed moving train. What did you see?
I mean, what I saw was just, it's just pure high velocity impact, which again, no one apart from Spiderman and the Avengers is able to survive. You have to you can classify it as the types of damage in terms of shearing or stretching.
Okay.
There's probably crush injuries as well, and there's also lacerations, and these sort of types of injuries they can really affect even not just the larger body structures, but also cause really minuscule damage as well. And that's and that's where you basically get all sorts of bleeding internally, externally, and that's I think that's the main takeaway from
I think
from that impact.
We did touch a bit on internal bleeding, as in we did do hemothorax. I think we did a bit of cardiac tamponade. I think in this scenario we might see some abdominal bleeding, no? And stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think it's really important to note that with these types of injuries, even as we saw on the last one, the effects of blood loss can be quite obviously can be quite damaging. When you see signs of bleeding, outside or inside, so that could be shown in types of bruising, you can the main thing you look for is hemorrhagic shock. So for in people like this, when they have these accidents, we also know as well like what sort of symptoms you can have with a different percentage of blood loss. I think the average person has about 8 to 12 pints of blood in their bodies, and I think only when you can have up to 14% blood loss actually without having too many symptoms.
Okay.
But then after that, so 15 to 30% as well, you can get things like an increase in your heart rate. So you can feel palpitations. You can feel really breathless as your respiratory rate goes up. So your body starts to compensate basically.
Okay.
Your urine output as well can be decreased. So this is only 15 to 30%. Obviously, that's quite a lot already.
A whole lot.
It's quite a lot already. But your body is starting to compensate. You'd have to lose between 30 or 40% before you start feeling faint enough to pass out and become unconscious. But obviously, hopefully by then, you've got the emergency services around you, either giving you fluids or emergency blood as well, to sort of help with that blood loss.
Interesting. I guess we all learned a bit about hemorrhagic shock today. Hopefully we get to learn about some other types of shocks soon enough too. Okay, so let's move on to our next clip. Okay, I think this...
Cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, I was just jumping up and down.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, that,
Oh.
ow.
Oh.
Oh.
Uh.
Mm.
Oh.
Ah.
Jeez.
I felt it. I
Ouch.
felt it. Like, I really felt it.
I felt a stitch. That's what
Wow.
that's what I felt looking
Like,
at that. Like, oof.
what did you see?
So he fell on his left side
Okay.
of his body, looked, and he started clutching his ribs. And I think, from that sort of impact, you have to. There's a few things that are in that region where he's clutching. I
Okay.
think one of them, which is just underneath the left ribs, is
Yeah.
the spleen. So,
Oh, wow.
for those of us who don't know what a spleen is,
Yeah, I
it's
think you need to educate
yeah,
us. What
it's
is
one
a
of
spleen?
these. It's one of these organs that's not really talked about. The spleen is actually an organ in your body that's associated with your immune system. It's about the size of your fist.
Okay.
Usually lives on the left side, just underneath your ribs there. And it is an important part of your immune system, but actually you can live without it. So if you were ever in a pickle where you've managed to rupture or fall from an extraordinary height and rupture your spleen, just like Spiderman has done, you can live without your spleen.
So can you give us some examples of when one can rupture his or her spleen?
The main things that I guess the more common things that can rupture your spleen. I think it happens quite a lot in contact sports.
Okay.
It can also happen in I guess anything like we've talked about before, like road traffic accidents. Falls can do it. Any blows or injuries to that left side.
Okay.
Sometimes if you already have a condition where you already have a damaged spleen, then your spleen becomes a little bit more prone to being ruptured, basically. And when I mean a bit more damaged, I mean like if your spleen is enlarged, if you're already suffering from maybe like a chronic medical condition already,
Mm-hmm.
those sorts of things can. I mean that's a bit less so. It's more of the high impact.
Okay, so what do we need to be careful about? And is there any role of bracelet or something to help notify somebody
Yeah, there
about it?
is. So actually, there are medical alert bracelets that you
Okay.
can wear to actually tell people, so that if there was any problems that you ran into. So, for example, if you were sick, someone can automatically identify that you don't have a spleen.
Okay.
That you have to be a bit more careful in terms of, especially if you get infections.
Mm-hmm.
And it can look just like, you can get medical alert bracelets for things like allergies and
Okay.
epilepsy as well. So it is important to know. So if you don't have a spleen, then it just quickly lets other medical professionals know, and members of the public know, that need to be treated with a sort of extra care as well. Yeah, and I think you can also carry an ID card as well.
Exactly. At least today we've learned something about the spleen.
Yeah.
I think most people just know about their stomach when it comes to the abdomen. But at least now we know there's something in there called the spleen.
Exactly.
Thanks, Spider-Man. Okay, I think we have a last clip here that I quickly want to review. This is not from the movie Spider-Man Far From Home. I think I got this one from Avengers Infinity War. Yeah, it's quite an interesting scene. So
awesome.
Let's have a look.
Let us have a look.
Wow. Wow.
My
It's
goodness.
being beamed up like that's wow.
Tell you the effects in this is mad. Oh. Yeah, this is mad.
Yeah,
Just
like
when
look
you
at
think
how
about it.
far
Look how
he is.
far away he is.
Oh, yeah,
And
can
he takes
be.
off that mask,
Yeah,
and you're just like,
yeah. I think it's running
whoa.
out of air.
Jeez.
Ooh.
Whoa. goodness.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, wow. Whoa, 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 whoa.
So I think what most people can actually pick out from
Mhm.
this is that he was running out of air. 'Cause
Yeah.
the higher you go, the thinner the air gets. But you as a
Exactly.
doctor, what do
Mhm.
you see?
So yeah, as soon as it makes sense that he's in space and therefore there's no oxygen.
Exactly.
So he's definitely gonna faint. But I think when you think about it, sort of in terms of being back on Earth, this sort of thing happens quite a lot. It's called altitude sickness.
Okay.
It's also called acute mountain sickness as well. And it's something that does happen to a lot of mountain climbers and those who go to places that are at very high altitudes. I believe it's above 2,500 meters. That's where you start to feel these sort of effects.
Can you reiterate the symptoms for us?
Yeah, so it includes, the milder ones includes headaches.
Okay.
You can start to feel sick as well, like nauseous. You can start to feel dizzy. There's tiredness. And then when it gets worse, you can start to feel short of breath.
As we could see in that clip, he was really struggling to breathe at that point.
Yeah, and then it can also even turn into hallucinations as well. So at that sort of point, you have to be really careful and start to try and treat that sort of altitude sickness.
So what's actually happening in the body for him to experience such symptoms?
Yeah, so basically you're at this altitude, basically the percentage of oxygen in the air is a lot less. It's a lot less.
A lot less than at sea level.
At sea level. So your body is basically trying to compensate for the oxygen loss that it's experiencing. So oxygen is not enough oxygen goes into your lungs that goes into your bloodstream, into your and then to your brain, basically. And that's why you get a lot of these symptoms like dizziness and feeling sick as well. And you feel short of breath because your body's having to work harder to gain the same amount of oxygen that it normally would have at lower altitudes.
And how do we treat it?
So they say in the first instance, especially if you're a mountain climber or you're already somewhere where it's quite high in altitude, the first thing is to try and go back down. So you can imagine as a mountain climber, that would be very frustrating.
Exactly.
You've climbed all that way and then you have to go back down. But they do say go back down probably about 500 meters. In the first instance, keep hydrated as well. They say so, and even if you do plan to go back up or go back up the mountain, if you're deciding to continue your journey, they all say you can actually have to go at a specific rate, so you have to go really slowly and not actually rush your way up the mountain or rush your way up to that altitude.
So that your body can acclimatize as you're going up.
Exactly. You're supposed to also avoid strenuous exercise. And there's also medications you can take, like acetazolamide as well. And you can take any painkillers like paracetamol and ibuprofen for things like the headaches and things. Even things like promethazine for the sickness. So there are some like medications you can take to sort of counteract the symptoms, but the main thing is go back down to a lower altitude. Wow, that's a lot of information to take in for one episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Alexis, for being on our show and for honoring the invitation. We hope to get you back soon enough. Definitely. I'd definitely be up for that.
Wow, that's nice. And before I let you guys go, as always, I'm going to ask you my trivia question. What is the medical term for being in shock after blood loss? And as always, I'm going to leave the details of Dr. Alexis app on screen. You can follow her on Instagram and go and see her artwork. She's really, really good at art too. She's not just a doctor. She has a whole lot. Okay, it's been a pleasure as always being with you guys. The name is Dr. Abe, and I'll catch you in our next episode.